Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
So, are you there? Can you hear us?
Peace and love. Yes, I can hear you.
Are you
Can
there?
you hear me?
Are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Are you
Yes, I can hear you. Uh, Good evening, everyone. You have to excuse me this evening. My voice is kind of hoarse. Still trying to get over um, some an illness that kind of been dealing with last week and a half or so. But the topic, today and what we're here for, um, there's a lot of people that are looking for answers. They want to know why. Why am I going through this? What did I do wrong? You know, and they're still losing their homes. Foreclosure is a process that's created by the lender to extract the home from the existing homeowner so they can repackage and sell the house all over again. And of course, they don't care what happens to the homeowner. That's not their concern. And they believe that legally it's not their responsibility. But so many people today are going through this process. And today, you're talking about millions of people today across the country dealing with the same issue, foreclosure. There are so many court cases right now, today, on the local district level, all the way up to federal. Foreclosure is the main court case right now, and everybody's moving in the same direction, and they are losing as well because they don't understand the mortgage situation, the securities are associated with the mortgage. The entire process has never been explained to them, and yet they're trying to figure it out by following the wrong people. And those people don't know, and so they don't know. And it's leading them right off the edge of the cliff, losing their home, their family home, and having to find somewhere else to live um, is just tearing families apart. And the lenders don't think there's anything wrong that they did on their part to this. I talk to people every single day about this, and they are struggling, trying to figure why this happened, what can they do, and everything they're doing is not working. It may delay the foreclosure from going through or the sale from being processed on the home, but it's not stopping it. It is definitely not stopping it. And so many people, because they have gone through a foreclosure, maybe filed bankruptcy, still lost a home, they are very leery of going back out into the market to buy a home. They have found themselves just accepting that they're going to have to rent a home or an apartment the rest of their life. It is very sad that this has taken place over and over and over again. And there is no answer out here in the public for millions of people who are dealing with this. At a time, there was a point in time where I could see 60, 70, 80,000 foreclosures in one state, 30, 40,000 in another state, 20,000 in another state across the country. on a month to month basis. So this is something that's definitely going to need to be addressed in a way that's going to help the people. So keep in mind that there are answers, but those answers are not out here in the public on social media. In these groups on social media, they don't have the answer. It sounds good on the outside, but it lacks substance on the inside. And so they won't be successful as you move in that direction. Nadia, did you have anything to share on that? Well, someone who's unlearned would think that the value is tied to the mortgage payments that they made over the last 7, 8, 10, 12 years. And that's important that they, ask the right questions to understand, what do you mean value? I know I made mortgage payments for 8 years, so I have that's my value. I know I have equity in the home. They're using these public terms uh, to get satisfaction or to win or to gain control of whatever the entity is. If it's a home, and they're moving from that perspective because they don't have any other perspective to act on. So understanding what does value mean? What do you mean value? You mean the mortgage payments I've made, or you mean the equity in the home? You know, it's different perspectives there. When you're dealing with, say a foreclosure example, or even another account, but a foreclosure example, which is very, you know, out there right now. This is what everybody's dealing with. You look at the value. What is the value? What do you mean value? I know I made mortgage payments. I know that the value of the property went up, so I have equity there. You're talking about that value, or you're talking about the value that I put into it, the mortgage payments I made. We want to kind of look at that because everybody's on a different page when it comes to the value.
True. That is true because many people don't even realize that outside of the mortgage payments, just like you said, there's something else happening. And that's part of the reason why I brought up the securitization audit because when you're dealing with an account, here's the golden rule, and I'll just give this to you all so that you're aware. Um, if there's a number associated, it doesn't matter what the number is. It really doesn't matter. Um, if there is a number, there is an associated QSIP associated with that number. And so, what is a QSIP? A QSIP is a 9-digit identifier that is connected to the securities associated with that account. So if there is a number, so now people may be thinking, oh, wait a minute, I have a lot of numbers. There's numbers. Everything is attached to a number, whether it be the driver's license, a bank account, a credit card, a loan, a mortgage, whatever the case may be, student loans. If there is a number, there is a corresponding QSIP to that number. So now that you have a little bit more context, if you were to obtain a securitization audit on the QSIP number, how would you go about utilizing that audit or that report in a court case? How would you do that? And this doesn't have anything to do with the payments and everything that you've made. First, let me ask you this. Do you even believe that any values are supposed to come back to you in the first place? Because, Mikhail, you did mention that there may be a lot of people out there that just simply don't know. They just don't know
They
because
don't know.
they're plugged into this system. The system tells
Yeah.
you sign a contract, you're obligated, you signed over a security interest, and because you did that, you're obligated to pay. But they don't advise you that there's anything happening on the back end of that transaction.
Well, I try to explain it to people in a way where they can kind of start to connect some dots because it's accounting. It's accounting 101. And it's two sides to the ledger. And a lot of people today, if you have purchased a home, then you have to be able to balance your checkbook or balance your accounting of what comes in and what's going out and make sure everything is balanced. So when you look at a mortgage, when you have closed on a home, that's accounting transaction. And you have to know that there's two sides to that accounting transaction. You're only aware, right, initially, that there's only one side, and that is the debt side. And that's what you focus on. When your entire life you knew there was two sides to the ledger, you've been running a household where it's two sides to the ledger, what's coming in and what's going out. but you've never connected the dots to say, hold on, if there's two sides, and what does the other side of this mortgage look like? I don't see that, but I know it's there. And so we have to really take someone from where they are, their own understanding that's not uh, going to work, and kind of open up the picture to them so they can see that, oh, there is another side to this mortgage that I was never informed of. Now, of course, the lender is not there to educate you, which means that you have to find your education elsewhere. But yet you've already gone into this contract agreement and signed the name of the estate and given them a blank endorsement. Now you're losing your home and you're wondering what's going on. And now you're trying to play catch up, and hopefully you run into the right individuals or right entity that's going to educate you on what's really happening on the other side of the ledger when it comes to a mortgage or an account. Because any account is going to have two sides, it has to balance out. And you cannot have a debt without a credit. As soon as you create the debt, the credit is also created simultaneously. But they don't want you to know about the credit that's created simultaneously. They want you to focus on the left side, the left hand, the debt. Focus on that, not on the credit. So a lot of people go into this blindly. They have no clue what's going on when they go out there, create an account, buy a house, buy a car. They don't know. They're not educated enough. And that's why they're considered an incompetent minor. And so because of that ignorance, and we've all, we're all guilty of it at one time or another, because we haven't all been awakened immediately. Somewhere down the road, we woke up and realized something is not right. So as an incompetent minor, this places the lender in control of the credit that's also associated with the debt on the other side of the ledger. So there's pieces of information that we're discussing this evening that you may have never heard about. An audit. How do you get an audit? I found out about the audit back in 2007, 2008, that there is an audit that you can do on an account, on a mortgage. And when I found out about it and I got a chance to see it, it was eye-opening. But that was my first time even realizing that there was an audit that could be done on a mortgage, on an account. And that was around the same time that I went to the investment world. I knew CUSIPs, started to see how CUSIPs are tied to accounts. And so a mortgage account is tied to a CUSIP, which is associated with securities. So everybody has to go through a learning stage to know what's really going on. The question for most is, do you have the time to figure all that out at the last minute when you're dealing with a foreclosure? No. So those who, of course, may have closed on a home within the last 6 months to a year, this is information you need to know and you need to put in action now. But of course, you think you got all the time in the world, and you'll wait till the last second as well. Someone told me, but I didn't listen. I was too busy doing this and that and the other. So an audit is going to be very important. It's going to give you a lot of information on an audit, but do you know what to do with it?
I was just about to say, because I haven't seen any responses come in from anybody who's watching online or YouTube in terms of how they would utilize that audit. So that tells me that people simply they just don't know, which is okay. They just don't know. And so there's more education that needs to take place. But here's the thing. What if you didn't have to specifically know how to use the audit? What if you could plug into a system that would analyze the audit for you and spit out the process necessary to move forward with your enforcement machine up against their enforcement machine. What if you had access to something like that? How would you, what would you do? How happy would you be to know that you can literally collapse the time frame and accelerate your level of understanding just by simply plugging into the right system? So people can go out and they can get an audit all day long. And you all have proven to me that many people just simply don't know how to use it. They just don't know how to use it. But there are people that do know what to do with those audits. We know. We know what to do with those audits. We know how to put the system together. We know how to put a package together that goes out to a lender. We know how to identify those parties to the securitization that's going to pay attention to your packet when it hits their desk. We know how to put these things together. Many people don't. And I know I know people out there are struggling with court cases and foreclosures, because if you weren't, you would not be on this call. You wouldn't be watching on TikTok. You wouldn't be listening on YouTube. So we know that there are issues out there. People are just not speaking up about those issues. We know that those issues exist. This is a machine that's created to pull you into these issues, right? So again, I'll ask the question, even for you all that are on the Zoom call, what would you do if you had access to a system that could analyze your audits for you? What would you do? How happy would you be? You know, these are real issues that people are struggling with, and this is tying us back into the financial woes of Babylon. You know, this is what we're here for, the financial woes of Babylon, and they are many, 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 many woes that are plaguing the people. Many woes. You know, and so these are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. What would we do? How would we handle this? Now, I don't know if many of you are aware that we have released, and the links are floating around right now because we've been sending out email blasts and we have been sending out text messages regarding the free resources that are available to folks, right? So how many of you, especially those that are watching on TikTok, have signed up for the free course that was released a couple of weeks ago regarding Noelle Prosecuti? How many of you have not signed up for the free course that's going to literally walk you through on how to get your court case dismissed? Okay, so that tells me that all of you all are in the course. Okay, that's a good thing, because that type of information is okay. So this person says, I haven't, I am new. Okay, healthy herb diet. Go ahead and send me, let me see. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link inside of the chat here. Give me just a second. You all are going to want to go ahead and sign up right now while we're on this call. So let's go ahead and get you all that link, and we'll also make sure that that link is dropped on YouTube for those of you that are watching. Now, here's the thing. It's a free resource that's available to you all to literally learn how to deal with your court case. It's going to help you become more confident. You're going to become empowered, and you're going to know exactly what to do, right? You'll know exactly what to do, but understand that this is just part one of many parts. Hold on just a second here. I'm going to drop this link in the chat. And while I'm doing that, do you all have any questions that you want to ask? Any questions at all regarding what we've covered, or any comments regarding what we have covered? Any questions at all? Okay, I'm coming. I'm gonna get you situated. I'm getting you the link right now. Just grabbing it for you. And here it comes. And you want to go ahead and sign up while you are on the call. Let's see here. Still trying to figure out how to work this. Okay, you should be able to see that now. Go ahead and click that link. Go ahead and click that link. And you can go ahead and get enrolled right now. And so if I see your name on TikTok, I should be able to see that you've enrolled in the course in real time. All right, and so Mikael, we have a question in the chat. It says, can you please explain more about the credit side of an account that we don't know about?
Yeah,
Mikael, you there?
sorry about that. Yeah, I
Okay,
want to make
thank you.
sure that you can actually hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
You know, it's important that we do understand that there's not a debt without a credit. When you look at the credit side of an account, if you are considered an incompetent minor, then that discussion is off the table. That's going to be important for you to know initially. So, as an incompetent minor, the credit side is not your responsibility because you are coming into this scenario as a minor. And so the credit side is basically left to a trustee, someone who can oversee and be responsible for the credit side of the transaction. You know, most of you won't learn that initially. There's some education that goes along with that as well that you need to really dive into to really know what is happening on the other side of the transaction or the credit side of that transaction. Um, Many people can explain that slightly differently, but when it comes to accounting, we know it's two sides. We know that they have to balance. And I use as an example, when I was a child, we would go to the park, and in the park there was this one um, uh, piece of equipment that we would get on. It's called a teeter totter, and I use that in accounting and investing to help people understand. Um, when it comes to two sides, there's always one side is going to be up and one side is going to be down, but you want to balance those out. Normally, you're focused on one side, which is the debt side, as opposed to the credit side of the transaction. And so now the credit side is handled by a trustee that steps in, and they focus on moving the credit away from the owner of that credit, which is you. And they want you to focus solely on the debt as opposed to the credit. Because had you known there was a credit as well available to offset the debt, of course you would have asked, how do I utilize that credit or leverage that credit to offset the debt? But of course, they don't want you to do that. They don't want you to even know about that. Why? Mainly because there's so much compound interest that they are receiving on this contract, on this loan, that they don't want you to know about the credit because they are profiting not only the credit, but the compound interest that you are uh, paying as well. As people normally know, when you close on a home, you're basically paying interest for 10 plus years. It's just the interest. It's not really too much going to the principal at all. So think about the compound interest that they are receiving from you as a incompetent minor. Why would they ever want to uh, reveal to you that there is a credit side to the ledger? And of course, we can't see the accounting that they have. And a lot of homeowners today dealing with foreclosure, they're trying to request a copy of the accounting, the gap accounting, and they never receive it. Why do they never receive the a copy of the gap accounting? Because they're not in the right position. They don't have the status. They're not operating from a trust perspective. There's so many things that have to be in place before you could ever think about receiving a copy of the accounting. They will never want you to see that because then the truth is uncovered and you start to see what's really going on and you start to see the real numbers. That's why an audit is also very important as well. All right. That answers your question, but we can go deeper into that understanding about this credit uh, because that credit is available to you as the original investor. You are the original investor. If it wasn't for your signature on the documents, they wouldn't be collecting the interest. They wouldn't be creating securities. You follow me?
Right.
All this is due to you. You have really enriched their life because of your signature, which was a blank endorsement, but it never told them who you are. When you come to a blank endorsement, all you did is write down the name of the estate. It didn't represent you, the living man or living woman. You didn't tell them who you are. So there are different steps that you want to start to take if you're thinking about purchasing a home. And a real estate agent can't educate you on this whatsoever. It's not her job. She is not equipped. And no one else from the lender's side of the table is going to educate you either. So your education has to come outside before you get to the closing, outside of a university, because a university will not teach you, educate you either before you go to a closing.
Oh, that is awesome. We had some individuals sign up for the course right on the call. You all are going to be um, edified by the information that's in this course. Welcome in. Welcome, welcome. And also, let me see. All right. Okay. Yep. We see you. Good for you all for moving forward. Education is key. Got to get that education underneath your belt to be able to know what to do. That I signed up, I sent in my request. And just bear with us because, TikTok is still a little bit foreign to me, to us, and going live. So we're just testing it out. Oh, you're all praises to the Most High. All praises to the Most High. So, like we said earlier, the reason why we're here is to help assist in the process of people being edified, you know, so that people can move forward with no confusion. because there is a lot of confusion and information out here, and people really need to see where it is that they stand in their process, and they definitely need to know who they are. And so, learning this type of information is a lifelong journey. It's not something that you're ever going to cut off because there's never too much information to learn. And so, we have to hold fast to that which is true and essentially get rid of anything that's not true, but we have to establish that foundation. And so, the reason why we're here is to help people establish a firm foundation. So, you want to get connected. You definitely want to take advantage of the free resources. And let me go ahead and drop this other link so that you all can get connected with that. Because there are some other free resources out there that you can take advantage of. And if you all are watching on YouTube, you definitely want to get back with the channel administrator that you're connected with at the moment. Just go ahead and send them a message. You should be able to click on their main YouTube channel page in the About section, and you should see an email address. If you're not if you're not on the actual Zoom call, and if you're not following on TikTok and you're on YouTube, and you haven't connected with us in any other way, shape, or form, just go ahead and send a message to the channel administrator, and let them know that you want to gain access to the free course, and they'll go ahead and respond back to you with that information. All right, but hold on a second. I'm gonna go ahead and get this going here. And while I'm doing that, any other comments or questions from you folks that are watching out there online? Any other comments? Because, when we come up every week, we typically like to keep these discussions to an hour because we understand that people, you all are into other things. You have other places that you may need to be. And so when people come back to watch the replay, we know that the attention span may not last more than 2 hours or more than an hour, right? And so we try to keep these videos short, right? So that you can get through it, because the pull of the world is strong, and so there's always going to be something that pops up to distract you from what it is that is happening. All right, there's always something that's going to distract you from your learning process. There's something that is the enemy is always working, and so he knows when you start to move in a certain direction. He knows how to distract you and how to just drop a very small hint of doubt or fear in your spirit, and it's going to throw you off track. Okay? It is going to throw you off track. So you have to stay diligent and stay connected with us and stay connected to these calls. Okay? All right. Mikael, any other closing thoughts? We're coming up on an hour. Now, I'm sorry, before you say that, here's the thing. You definitely want to stay connected. You're going to want to subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're watching. You're going to want to follow the TikTok channel that you're watching. Make sure you stay connected. That's key. And so you'll quickly find, as you engage with our group, that the way that we're moving about and the information that we're sharing is set apart from anything else that you're going to see out there. It really is set apart. All right. We are looking to create long-lasting relationships. This is not just us. This isn't a one-time thing. We're trying to create longevity because we really do need to have people that we can trust. All right. We really, really do. This is not short-term. And we're not just going to throw you in the system and say, okay, here you have what you need, hit the ground running. No, we need trustees that we can trust because there are other things on the table, right? So this is why we need long-lasting relationships, but you all have to be educated so that we can do business the right way. You have to be educated for us to be able to take you to the next level. Okay? So, Mikael, any closing thoughts? Anything at all?
Well, at this point, we're having a basic discussion. No matter what type of account it is, no matter what the legal situation you're dealing with, there's a way for you to win. um, but for most people, they don't know what those steps are to win. Um, you really have to examine the information you may be receiving from all these different sources. If you're unsure, if it doesn't make sense, if they can't answer the why questions, and if you don't have any why questions, that could be the problem. But you should be able to ask your why questions and get a response that makes sense, that leads you to the next question, that leads you to the next step. Because the majority of people today are not moving in the right direction when it comes to court scenarios. They think they are, but they're not. And if you talk to enough people, you're going to find out that they're not successful. That means all that they did, everything that they thought they needed to do, they did, and they still did not work. Now, I'm not saying that some of the documents that they filed didn't make sense, but it took them in the wrong direction. You know, I've heard people say, well, I filed this, I did that. And I said, yeah, I like this and I like that. But there's still something missing. Your document shouldn't take you to the left when it should be taking you to the right in a different direction with a different perspective. And so that's what's going to set us apart from all those other people out there that you're going to talk to. It's going to say, oh, file this document, file that document. Why file this? Why